You've heard of the quiet storm. Now be ready for the thunderstorm. It's the show where we can't be quiet, discussing world affairs from the Christian hip-hop perspective. That's right, the Christian hip-hop perspective. With your host, Christian hip-hop artist and sports blogger, GQ Forever. So turn up your radio. You are now listening to the Thunderstorm.
It's been quite some time since we started with a live broadcast as we enter the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for 3 hours of greatness. Starting with hour number 1, and I couldn't think of a better way to do this, man. This has been an emotional, a trying day, a day where we can celebrate a lot of things, get happy about others. We lost Hank Aaron today, and I must salute Hammer and Hank. We do a lot of things sometimes, man. We tend to throw around terms so much they seem to have lost their zing and their sting. We say genius so much that we don't appreciate a real genius when they come along. We throw the genius title on everybody. We say icon so much that we don't appreciate real icons when we come around. GOAT. There can't be 75 GOATs. Somebody has to rise above the rest of them and be the greatest of all time. And here's another one. Change the game. We say that a lot. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times when we say that, that falls on people who deserve the title. But when we start talking about people who change the game, Lord have mercy, it's hard to find somebody that's equal or exceeds the contributions of what Hank Aaron did for the great game of baseball. So we miss him. Let me say humbly, happy birthday to a dear friend of mine, LaToya Jordan, over at Bam Woman Magazine. I know her and Jennifer and Lucretia and everybody's in Texas getting ready for some wild shenanigans, and I wish I was there. Actually, I will be there. LaToya, Jen, Lucretia, if you're listening, expect me to hit you up on Duo on some type of stream where you can see me, whether that be your iPhone, your Facebook Messenger, or something. I'm getting in this party some kind of way, even though I'm a couple of time zones away. And today, now that we've all had time to calm down, how do you feel now? You feel okay about this hire? And forgive me because we barely crossed the 24-hour mark, and I still forget to call him Sirianni sometimes. I've called him Sirianni. I've called him Serial. I've called him all kinds of things except what his name is. And I still have to cheat sometimes to know how to spell it. Because anybody that knows me knows this. I consider myself to be a pretty decent writer, but there's certain things I have to double check. Sometimes when you have to determine whether or not you got 2 D's or 2 L's, 2 N's or S's or 1 S, Tennessee, Tallahassee, Roger Goodell, Russell Wilson. Is it 2 S's in Russell Wilson and 1 L, or is it 2 S's and 2 L's? Tennessee throws me off all the time. But how do you feel now? We got a new coach, and Deuce Staley's been overlooked again, and I have a problem with that. So there's a lot to unpack here. I still don't know how I feel about this Sirianni hire. I don't know if I still don't feel like we should have waited on Eric Bieniemy. I don't care if he's playing past this weekend, 3 weeks from now, I don't care, whatever. To sit up here and say that we were going to invest everything that we could into extending ourselves as much as we could to do the most successful head coaching search possible, you kind of have to interview Eric Bieniemy, don't you? You can't say you covered all your bases if you leave him out. That's my theory. There are others, but I brought along some help. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the storm. It's been a long time since we opened up live, so that means I got plenty of energy. He's here to kind of control me a little bit and try to keep me under control and kind of keep me humble. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the broadcast. Dear friend of mine, one of the great contributors over at Inside the Iggles. Wrote some great stuff today, as a matter of fact. You got to check that out if you haven't. Tom Cunningham, welcome to the broadcast, sir.
What's up, brother?
What's going on with you?
It's been a day. The Hammer Hank, RIP, brother. We're almost 24 hours moved from Nick Salami
Yeah.
No, get his name right. Sirianni. Man, so you start off with saying something really well. And we talked about, one of the things with the Eagles interviewing so many people was, okay, they're doing due diligence. And you would figure that they would probably wait for Eric Bieniemy to come and interview. So I have some of my own theories on this, because it wasn't just the Eagles, but this is a very Jeff Lurie hire. This is the same way he hired Andy Reid. This is the same way that he hired Doug Peterson. It's a very, people you just didn't think would ever hire are the guys that Jeff Lurie is going to pick. Now, give Jeff Lurie smidge of credit. He's found success with these coaches. But on the other hand, I feel like there's some more talent still out there that we just weren't. I mean, it's not Josh McDaniels, so we're good.
Thank God it wasn't him.
Yeah, we're good from there. But like Jeff just said, I had wrote a piece today just about the pros and cons of the hire of Nick Sirianni, who was the offensive coordinator for the Colts. And we're talking a lot about this, and you brought up a great point. Unless I totally missed it, has it been officially announced yet?
Nah. I'm wondering if we're going to see a press conference sometime around Monday. And I was kind of joking around about it. I'm pretty sure this has something to do with contract negotiations. I don't know why. I thought that's probably what the second interview would have been about. But I'm pretty sure that has something to do with that. Once we actually got pen to paper and everything, they'll make an official announcement and so on and so forth. But we'll see what happens.
And that's where, this was a very Jeff Lurie hire. Now, here's the deal. Just because he's unknown doesn't make him a bad hire. I dug very deep in the hole to kind of dig up whatever. I think we all did dig up whatever knowledge we could on him. And to me, the thing because from everything I heard, a couple different sources, some things that me and you had even talked about, Deuce did interview very well. And I guess Deuce may have had the third or fourth longest interview of all the candidates, and he interviewed really well. I think one of the things that really kind of held Deuce back was probably the staff he was looking to bring on. So now you got a guy like, our new head coach now, Nick, and he's been around the league for a while, but not only he's been around the league for a little while, he's been on different franchises, different organizations. So his network is actually a little bit larger.
Right.
And I think that may have been more the appealing factor.
Do you feel like Deuce never called in plays or ever held in the coordinator position had anything to do with it?
Maybe a little bit. I think the big thing that was kind of behind this was that, Nick didn't really, and we don't know, he still might not call plays, but he never called plays in Indianapolis. However, both Indianapolis and the Chargers, he was very in charge of play designs. And I think that's what I guess caught their eye. But that's all fine and dandy, but I think it had a little bit to do with it, but I don't think it had the whole scheme. I really think it was that Deuce's overall network wouldn't attract, big ticket items, big ticket OCs and things like that. And maybe it would have, he has been in the league for a long time and a coach for a long time, and we just don't know. And we'll see kind of how it pans out. I'm kind of curious to see what Deuce ends up doing, if he ends up staying or leaving, or he'll be named to OC. I'm not sure. But with Eric Bieniemy, man, I know we requested an interview. I know for a minute we didn't hear back. The Eagles didn't hear back. I'm not sure if that stayed the same, but the Eagles are one of 6 teams that just moved off him very quickly. I know some reports were he didn't interview very well. But I was watching, Undisputed today, and Shannon Sharp brought up a really good point was, hey, man, I take the test 10 times. I'm not going to fail it 10 times, and I thought that very, very thing. But something's holding him back within the league, that teams are moving off of him and moving off him almost quickly. There's teams who even didn't bother considering him.
Yeah, he's been shut out twice now.
Yeah, and so there's something more I would like to kind of read into that, dig into that more. But
let's see.
What's your thoughts? What do you feel about it?
I don't know how much you heard before you came on. I personally believe that in order for us to have done a successful coaching search, like whatever they're saying, maybe they know something we don't, like you said. But at the same time, too, I feel like if this is one of the hot candidates that we talked about for quite some time, I've heard all kinds of things. Perhaps he was overlooked by this franchise because they didn't want another Andy Reid disciple. I think if your plan partially in finding a coach is to mend the bridge between you and Carson Wentz, then if that's a legitimate conversation to be had, it is also a legitimate conversation to see that we need to get Eric Bieniemy here to at least have a conversation with him to see if he provides what we're looking for in a head coach. By not doing that, I feel like everything, as per usual, everything we've heard from Jeffrey Lurie and this organization telling us that they're doing everything that they can do has not happened. That's my theory.
Agreed. It just came. I mean, like we talked about some under the radar coaches, and this was under the radar, like way under the scope for him to get it. And like I said, but it matches with the profile that Jeff Lurie typically tends to hire. Andy Reid was on nobody's list. Andy Reid didn't call plays.
Right. That's true.
Doug Peterson never called plays until he got here. He had some play calling duties, but he was on nobody's hot list.
True.
So what cues me, so it's no shock that we may have messed this up. But I think there's something in the league that there's something on his resume that's holding people back, and I just don't know what it is. And it's something I'm going to try to dig into, man. Because I think Eric Bieniemy is a very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
But when all of a sudden it came out that like Mike Kafka was a more possible sought out candidate than Eric Bieniemy, I was like, Mike Kafka has been a coach for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm older than Mike Kafka. You're older than Mike Kafka. I was like, that's young.
That seems to be the trend nowadays. It seems like guys are getting promoted and they just shooting straight through the system as quickly as possible. It seems like I'm seeing that more and more often. You mentioned Doug Peterson. Question about that you just made me think about. So Doug Peterson wasn't their first choice last time. We got turned down by Adam Gase last time. Thank God we dodged that bullet. But this team wanted Adam Gase. And the point is they didn't get their first option or their second. And then they get a coach partially off the recommendation of a former coach that they already know. Now, fast forward many, many, many moons later, from 2016 to 2020, and here we are again. We don't get the first guy we want. We're getting turned down by Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley. Brian Daboll said, I'd rather go back to Buffalo and be a coordinator than to go to the city of brotherly love. Here we are again, and I joked around about this last night. If anybody knew that Sirianni was on this team's radar before 3 days ago, you're lying.
Oh, yeah, you're lying. You're lying.
So here we are again, and we don't get our first choice. We don't get our second choice. I joked around he might be the fourth. He may have been the fifth. And look what history has repeated itself, my friend. A coach who we almost fired, by the way, we forget about that about Frank Reich, makes a recommendation about one of his assistant coaches, and all of a sudden he's our guy now. Is there anything weird there, or is there something we should worry about? So that's a two-part question. That, and is this still a desirable job?
So when you kind of break it down, like pretty much kind of like the way you just did, it's concerning. Like I knew Lincoln Riley was a long shot. I wasn't the biggest fan of Ryan Day.
True.
And so when it comes to Dable, Dable's staying with the Bills. He's not he turned down some interviews. He's being patient, which is good for him. I mean, but he also is old enough to know, and has been in the league long enough to know that, hey man, I can't even pick my own ingredients to make the salad that you want me to make. So, and that's it. So that's a problem. That's why part of the reason why I think they went younger. I do think they were very, very interested in Josh McDaniels. But we already have talked to concerns greatly about that. His time in the Broncos and all that, it was just not a key guy, not a locker guy. And then you're right. And this may have been their 5th pick.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as it being a desirable job, I do think it is. But where it comes into key during these interviews is what is being asked during these interviews. Mm-hmm. So you're a head coach. I'm Howie Roseman. And you were like, okay, how much real personnel control are you going to have? 50%? Is it going to be a discussion? Or am I just there to make sure everyone shows up on time? And that to me would be to anybody, that should be the alarm of if this is an attractive job or not. If Howie Roseman's like, no, I pick the people. Mm-hmm. You just go coach and make sure everyone shows up on time. No one's going to want that job. If it's a continued effort, like they say it is, a little bit more. Because the one thing about it is, hey, there's only 32 of these jobs. Mm-hmm. So if you get your shot, take your shot. For an older person like Josh McDaniels, Ryan Dable, or anyone of that nature, they're not want to take this job because they might not ever have that second chance. You got someone like Nick Sirianni. He's only 39. He messes this up. He's going to go be a coordinator somewhere. Mm-hmm. He's still got plenty of time to make this happen again. So, yeah, I think it's a wanted job by those who are kind of willing to deal with the devil is kind of my big thing. If you're willing to give up play calling, if you're willing to, or not play calling, personnel control and things of that nature, know that your opinion on your own team is second in the room, power to you. And that's going to be the issue.
Rumor has it, not by anybody that I would say that we need to mention, but said enough times that I feel like it's worth being said. Kind of playing along with what you just said there. Brian Daboll may have had some theory that taking this job where there may not be any light at the end of the tunnel may railroad him for the rest of his career. Think there's any credence to that? Not saying he said it or anything, but does that make sense as an argument?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I've also heard that rumor before, and I think that's what a lot of people banked on why he turned kind of even didn't want to interview here. And like, that's why I said that goes back to, hey, he's an older guy. I think he's 51, 49, 50. He's an older guy. So pretty much the amount of time he will have to get a second job is not high. All depends upon how the franchise shook out. Right. And, and like I said, I tweeted about it today. I laughed. I was like, everyone thinks this is a hire for Carson Wentz until they draft a quarterback in the 6th, with the 6th pick overall. Because like I said, we don't even know if he wants to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. You could say, get rid of whoever you want to get rid of Doug, get rid of Press Taylor. Yeah. He still might not want to be here anymore. So it's a very large possibility that we still might not see Carson Wentz, or we might. And, maybe that's his big thing. I would expect at least one of because remember, we still have an offensive coordinator. We still have a defensive coordinator that we have to go hunting for. We're going to need a quarterbacks coach. So there's many, we're going to need a linebacker coach. Mm-hmm. There's many positions that they still have to fill. And I'm really wondering, one of those picks I feel like are not going to be Nick's. I feel like they're going to be a Howie or Jeff pick, kind of like what they did with Doug. They paired him with, oh my God, why am I blanking? Our old defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz, yeah. And that was part of the reason why they paired him with him. He was a veteran guy, been around the league, was a head coach. So that's curious to really see what they end up trying to do. So
I got a Doug, a Carson, and a Deuce question. So we'll start with Doug. Did he get fired on purpose? Did he finally grow a backbone and sit here and say, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah. The big story behind that is when they originally sat down on the Monday after the season ended during the exit interviews, the question was, you need a better staff. You're not going to work with these guys. Who are the guys you're going to bring in to revitalize this offense? Mm-hmm. And his main ticket item was Press Taylor. And Jeff was like, nope. So they gave him a shot. They said, hey, in Florida, let's talk about it. When I found out they were having a second meeting, that's when me and you had already talked about this. I was like, he's not coming back. Mm-hmm. He's not coming back. And then when he came back and literally said, Press Taylor is going to be my offensive coordinator. And I don't know if he said Matt Burke or somebody was going to be the defensive coordinator. That was it. So they keep saying that he got fired. I just don't think that he got fired. I think they just were like, this isn't working, and let's move on. Because nowhere outside of Philly reporters or national media did it say they got fired. To me, when I read this closing statement by the Eagles, it sounded like they parted ways. They just said, hey, if you're not going to change, then we need to move off on it, which I guess essentially is getting fired. But I think he was over it. And now it even looks like it more because he's apparently going to take a year off of coaching, which needed. The guy was looking a little rough in the last year.
I feel smarter every time I talk to you, man. That's why I keep it right now. I got my brand new gel pen. I'm taking notes and everything. So here's one I got about Carson Wentz. For some reason, we abandoned making this team better and decided that it was a higher priority to make Carson Wentz more comfortable and mend the fence. Well, mend the bridge between him. Is it mend the bridge or mend the fence?
I think you do both. Fix a bridge.
So we're tearing down the fence. We'll say we'll tear down the fence and we'll mend the bridge. We'll do that. That became more important than actually making this team better, is rebuilding our relationship with Carson Wentz. So we went out and got a coach to help us do that. Here's my problem. Now, you talked about this today, and I've heard this said about Sirianni. He's a no-nonsense guy that's going to command the respect.
For everyone who's on this live stream, I think Jeff may have just knocked out his internet cable. Guys, just a little sidebar step here while Jeff gets back online with some technical difficulties. You can find me on Twitter at Tom_FPF Sports HQ. It's right there. Also, you can follow me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything for my podcast is Fight Philly Fight. Bringing you weekly content always. Jeff was actually just on there. It was always a great celebrity, a local celebrity to us. But a few questions I'm going to ask if anyone wants to comment on this stream here is if you had one pick at any other quarterback that wouldn't have been Carson Wentz, who would it have been? If you go back to that draft, that 2016 draft, if you could pick another quarterback, free agency or through the draft, and it wasn't Carson Wentz, who was going to be? Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, and we see that my man is back on.
Appreciate it, man. We had a little bit of technical difficulties there. I had no idea what happened.
It's all good.
They're trying to rob me of my opportunity to ask you this question. I'm going to ask it anyway. So we're going to mend this fence. We'll tear down the fence, we said, and mend the bridge between us and Carson Wentz. Problem with that is this, Tom. We went and got a no-nonsense guy. We went and got a guy who demands the respect of the locker room. How on earth is that going to make things better? Carson Wentz couldn't handle John DeFilippo and couldn't handle Doug Peterson's coaching style. I believe, personally, that this isn't going to build the bridge. This is going to destroy this man's will altogether. He's already fragile. I've been taking heat for a long time for sitting here saying that I question his mental toughness. And they got mad at me, but then everybody else started to say the same thing I was saying. This isn't going to fix Carson Wentz. This isn't going to salvage him. I think the plan is backfired now. What do you think?
I think this is why I said at the beginning. I still don't. There's still a chance he wants to be traded. And that's why. It's a great question. That's why I said, there's still a chance he wants to be traded. And I joke about things and we laugh about stuff, but maybe he won't be able to handle the coaching, or maybe he will. And that's kind of where this comes in line. But to me, this is where a lot of people are like, oh, you want to fix Carson Wentz? Trade Jalen Hurts. Why? Aaron Rodgers got a quarterback drafted in the first round, and he's about to be the MVP, possibly Super Bowl champion.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy can't handle a second-round pick quarterback in the waiting.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They got a lot of stuff they have to fix with him. And to my question, this may be a counter question you were going to ask. We hire a guy to fix Carson Wentz. We got 52 other problems on this roster. We got an aging O-line, an expensive O-line. We got an aging defensive line, expensive defensive line. We have the secondary still a mess. Our wide receivers, depending upon the day of the week, typically not Sundays, can't catch the ball, can't get open, can't break coverage, get booted off the routes. We got a lot of problems, not just Carson Wentz. So my concern is we're going to focus so much on Carson Wentz that it's going to look like nothing's changed. And that's my concern. And I put out in my article today, my pros and cons is that this is a tall order. This isn't just a quarterback fix. You got cap issues that are not going anywhere, especially if Carson Wentz stays. And like all the other things is, listen, you got a lot of problems that you're going to have to be a part of, which is why I wonder also part of the negotiations of this contract is, understanding from Jeff and Howie and from Nick being like, hey man, I understand you guys are rebuilding, but I'm not getting fired for this old roster. Y'all are going to give me some time and I'll let you rebuild this before I take any more heat. And I think that's part of it. Shoot, if I was a head coach of this team, I would put in my contract not to talk to the media. I know it's not possible, but
very good idea.
We're tough, man.
Yeah, got an interesting story here, man. So it's always cool to talk to the local crowd. It's always cool to talk to people who are covering teams in other cities. Like I knew all kinds of stuff about the NFL until I started talking about one team all day. So you have to rely on your brothers from like G-Men HQ and the Viking Age and things like that nature to go get a quote from them or an opinion from them if you're talking about the Vikings, so on and so forth. And this is a funny Chips Kelly story. So I've now covered, whether on this platform or another, all three coaching changes. We've gone from Ray Rose to Andy Reid. I've gone from Andy Reid to Chip Kelly. Well, four now. I've gone from Chip Kelly to Doug, and I've gone from Doug to Sirianni.
Don't date yourself.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Don't date yourself.
You see the gray here, man. So this is what's funny about that. So some guys called for me from San Francisco to talk about Chip Kelly and how innovative their offense is going to be now that they got Chip Kelly. I'm like, that's not what I'm going to say when I go in there. But it was good they had me because we could correct that mistake. Now, I tend to look at what other people are saying. So in reference with Deuce, my whole thing is, man, what's Deuce's mental mind state now? At some point, you have to realize I've had to quit jobs before because I realized, you know what? I've reached my ceiling. I'm not going anywhere past where I am now. And Deuce Staley, I was wondering if he was starting to feel that same way. And then I see a tweet from Adam Johns, who actually covers the Bears and Chicago sports in general for The Athletic. He's saying that the Bears have reached out to Deuce Staley, and there might be some interest in him for a coordinator position. After we had been talking all day about there was no interest in Deuce. Now, I'm sure he's familiar with Chicago stuff. He may not be as familiar with Philadelphia stuff, and this may be a bad example or a bad parallel. But so now he's deleted that tweet, and now there is another tweet stating that he was wrong in stating that they had contacted Deuce, but he's aware of the fact that they're interested, and he is a very reliable source. Put yourself in Deuce's shoes. How are you feeling right now?
See, the way they kind of have, and this is not, I don't necessarily agree with this either. The way that they've kind of put Deuce off to the sides, it's kind of the sideline pretty much, is he gave him a title of assistant head coach. And from what I remember reading, if I'm correct, they pay him kind of a lot of money. So if he were to go any place for an offensive coordinator position, I feel like teams got to be interested in him. They got to be. The guy has been in the league a long time. Look what he's done with the running back core. Now he's the run game coordinator and things of that nature. The only thing I think Deuce would keep Deuce from going to another team as a coordinator is possibly monetary. But then again, I think if Deuce were like, hey, I'm out of here, peace, would any of us, we'd be all upset because we're losing Deuce, but we all get it.
Can't hold it against him. No.
You just said it right now. You just perfectly described the situation. Hey, man, I've been in jobs where I'm not moving up any further than this. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes money isn't everything. And I think Deuce could do that. I do think that's a possibility, but we'll just see. I mean, we got Jeff Stoutland is staying, which is huge.
Yeah.
And I really hope Deuce stays. I really think Deuce is a huge piece to the puzzle. And I also think he's the glue that's really kept that locker room together. I definitely think he can help transition in Nick when he comes in. And it's just, we'll really have to see, man. But that's weird. I didn't hear that Chicago thing. That is news to me.
It's interesting. So here's what's interesting, though. I mean, I love Deuce. Deuce is from Columbia. I was born in Columbia. Deuce lived in Columbia. I lived in Columbia. Deuce is a Gamecock. I'm a Gamecock. Deuce was an Eagle. I'm an Eagle. Deuce loves the Eagles. I love the Eagles. I love that dude so much, man. He has been on Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, and now Doug Peterson's coaching staff, and will be on Sirianni's coaching staff if Sirianni wants to retain him, which he probably would. I can't see anybody firing Deuce Staley. The players wanted him. They ignored him. Deuce says, and we've heard reports now, got to be fair about this. We've heard reports now that he turned down the OC job because he couldn't call the plays. So some of this may be Deuce. A lot of this is Philly, but we know that he wanted the head coaching job and he didn't get that. And what if Sirianni doesn't work out? Is Deuce getting the coaching job next time? Probably not.
I would be, if I were Deuce, I would be even more angry if I got it. Because now this would be, because I think he interviewed for, no, he didn't interview for when Doug got it, I don't think. But this is going to be like 3 or 4 times he's interviewed for position and not got it. And then after you had 2 head coaches not work out and X amount of offensive coordinators work out, now y'all want to hire me? I'd be pissed. I wouldn't do it. I'd be like, nah, I'm out. I get his loyalty to this team, but we talk about this loyalty to this team's loyalty sometimes is a hindrance.
Sometimes you got to be loyal to you.
Exactly, and that's the best part to kind of bring about that. So I'm interested to see what Nick could bring. I'm not down on the hire. I'm not shocked by the hire. It's a very Jeff Lurie-like hire. But man, we'll wait and see. And this is going to be. We still got a long way to go, and it's almost already February.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's only January.
Yeah.
We got to pace ourselves here. Well done, man. Appreciate you for taking the time to come on. For those watching and listening, I forgot now that you're on here, I forgot what happened, but Thomas was, when we say last minute notice, this is the definition of last minute notice. I literally called this man 5 minutes before the show started, and he said, give me 30 seconds and I'm down. So, man, I appreciate you. I'm not going to take up any more of your night, man. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, man, I greatly appreciate being on here. Always love being on Thunderstorm Media, talking, especially when we talk about the Birds. Brother, hit me up. Appreciate everyone checking in. Once again, you can find me on Twitter at Tom_FPF Sports HQ. Also, you can go listen to my podcast, Fight Philly Fight. There was an episode that just dropped with the man, the myth, your host right here, Mr. Jeffrey Knox. But appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, man. We appreciate you coming on. You have a good night.
See you, bub.
All right. That was fun. Covered a lot of ground, answered a lot of questions there, talked about a lot of things. I have no idea what this team is doing. I'll be the first to tell you I know this team backwards and forwards. I spend a considerable amount of my time a day on the phone, on emails, in chats, and my entire conversation is about what this team is doing. And then we go to Inside the Iggles, and we talk all day about what this team is doing. Download our mobile app, by the way. Inside the Iggles, we have the freshest and the flyest content daily. And I put my team up against anybody. It's January the 22nd, 2021. And I would be remiss if I did not say what's up to one of the greats, Kobe Bryant. Love that dude to death. Super, super Philly guy, super Philadelphia Eagles fan. Today is the 15-year anniversary of that 81-point game. Go watch that one on YouTube if you've never seen it. If you're a little younger and you're still trying to get the essence of what Kobe was and the Mamba mentality was, go on, just Google Kobe Bryant 81 and just watch the greatness. It's been fun. We're off and running. I got 2.5 more hours of this. You're listening to The Storm. We appreciate y'all for tuning in live via social media. We'll be right back with y'all on the other side of this.